And today's webinar is pretty interesting because I'm going to show you the calculator application. And you're going to say, maybe, you know, a calculator, it's just a calculator, but I'll show you what the MatConnect calculator will do. We'll dive in a bit in a couple of math functions and some graphics, and it's going to be pretty interesting. And then also, what we'll see is that how to set up your MatConnect for your student to take an exam. While going through this procedure, I've noticed a couple of things that it could be long for you to set up, but I think while doing this training, I've took good notes, and or Human will improve on this procedure so it can help you and your students to perform in school with the right technology and the right tools. So let's dive in. And also, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer. So even though it's not on the calculator or it's not on taking exams, please follow along with your MatConnect if you have one. And also, any questions that you have, I'll answer them live. It's your time now. I think what I'll be doing is I'll be taking about half an hour, 35 minutes on the calculator and the exam mode. And then I'm going to leave it as an open line for you guys to ask questions, because this is a time I'm here for you guys 100%. So feel free to ask questions. Feel free to follow along with your MatConnect if you do have one. All right, so let's dive in. So I'm just going to turn my camera here. So I have my MatConnect all set up. With that nice little setup I have there, Advanced Engineering Mathematics at the end there, just to show you that we'll be doing a bit of math today. Good stuff. All right, so once I'm in my Prodigi software, I can slide my finger across. And again, for those who don't know what the MatConnect is it's an Android tablet with Prodigi software installed. And if I scroll to the end on the left-hand side, you'll find the calculator application. So if you click on that, it will open up a very standard calculator. And right now, this standard calculator, you can do just a very basic arithmetic with it, division, multiplication, subtraction, addition, percentage sign, and maybe change the sign of a number, and then the equal sign. So this is the basic calculator. Maybe a little kiddo starting to use or starting to see what kind of, what is a math and what is a calculator. You can start using this very easily. So it's kind of like any kind of calculator. Let's go back to my basic calculator. This is something that you'll see in any application. Very basic calculator with that double zero also as an option. So 1 + 1 = 4. No, I'm kidding, 2. And then you can just use a clear button once to clear the whole thing, or you can press and hold if you have something really long that you want to clear. But that's very interesting, but that's not what we want to dive into. And I want to show you a bit of the scientific calculator and the graphing calculator. So to set up your calculator to do so, you have 2 buttons on the left-hand side top corner of the calculator. The top 2 buttons on the left here, you're going to click on the one on the bottom. So it's going to be the little gear button, which is going to give you a little settings menu here. And in this settings menu, there's a couple of things that we can set for the calculator. So the first option on the top is the mode option. And I'll come back to that. You can select the grid color. So as you notice, if I go back to my calculator, that grid is red now. But if the red doesn't work for you or your student, you can change that color to all kinds of colors available here in this list. So let's put it in blue. There we go. And then you got the angle units. So in these, when you click on that, you have options to set it to. Okay, so I have a little question here. I only have 1 button on the top left. So that means that you have the back button only on your calculator. So that means you're not at the current version of Prodigi. So let me just finish here, and I'll go back to answering your question here. So here in angle units, you can select either degrees, radians, or gradients, depending on what the student level is. Usually people or the younger students will use degrees, and then once you move on to higher education, you'll see radians. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to show you the version that you should be having on, or you should have installed on your Prodigi. So I went back to my main menu, and I'm going to go to the right-hand side and go and look for settings. Tap on that, and then into settings, you go down to the last option, which will be about, and you should have a version of Prodigi of 4.2.1.7722. So that's the latest version that should be installed on your Mat Connect. If that's not the version that you have, then what I suggest is maybe updating your Mat Connect. So how to do that? I'm going to go back one level up. I will scroll back up to System, and then here I have a couple of things in System. I have the first option on the top is Wi-Fi setup, then you have Bluetooth and software update. In order to do a software update, you need to be connected to the internet. So you need to set up your Wi-Fi first. So how to do that? Tap on that Wi-Fi setup option on the top of that menu. And then here you have a couple of other options, and you're going to go and select if your Wi-Fi is not on, tap on it, it's going to turn on. And then once it's on, you'll have the option of looking for a Wi-Fi network, so tap on that. And right now, see, I'm connected to my D-Link 5529 right now, so I don't have to do this. But if you're not connected, then it's going to give you a list of all the networks that you can connect to. So you can select one and then enter the password. So what it's going to look like, let's say if I take this one, the ZAC13, I go on it, it will say connect. So if I go to connect, it's going to prompt me, or I don't know if I have, I already have it saved. So that's not going to work. It's already connected, but let's forget this one for now. I'm going to forget my network, so I don't have a password for it. So when I tap on ZAC13 and do a connect, it's going to prompt me for my password. You can enter your password for your network, and it should connect automatically. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to my network here that works best for me. And I think I'm already connected. Good. All right. Once you're connected to your Wi-Fi and you're connected to the internet, you go back to that system menu and then hit on that software update. In my case, my software is already up to date, but if you have the option of updating your Mat Connect, it's going to ask you, well, you have updates to install. You want to install them now, or you want to wait? So you just do install. It's going to take a couple of minutes, and it's going to download all the software. So what's it going to download? It's going to download the Prodigi application and all its suites. So the Prodigi application with the distance application, the books application, and then it's going to download the Prodigi OCR application. Then it's going to download also, if there is some new versions, the voice, also Prodigi voices. So that's how you update your Prodigi or your Mat Connect, your Prodigi software on your Mat Connect. So please do so, and then you should be able to see that 2 buttons on the top left corner of the calculator. If you don't have that and you have a problem or trouble updating your Mat Connect, please email me or call customer support. My email, I'm always going to try to help you as soon as I can, but my email is Eric, E-R-I-C, period, Beauchamp, B-E-A-U-C-H-A-M-P, at humanware.com. And I'm pretty sure here, majority of you know me and already sent me an email, but I try to respond as quickly as I can, because I want to support you guys in giving the right technology to your students. All right, so back to it. So that's how you update your Prodigi or your Mat Connect. So what you want to do, I'm going to select again my calculator. I'm going to go back to my settings menu. By the way, if that person that couldn't update the Mat Connect, you can still follow if you want. The settings menu is a press and hold on the back button. So you only have one button. So press and hold on that back button. It's going to bring you to a settings menu, which is going to look like something like this. Most probably, if you're not up to date, you won't have the Graphical Calculator, but you will have the Scientific Calculator. Okay. So that person that doesn't have the right version installed on our Mat Connect, you can still try to follow and then update later on. That's no problem. Okay. All right, so we went through the grid colors. We went through the angles unit that you can change. I'm going to keep it here, the angle units to degrees, because everybody knows degrees. I've changed my grid color to blue. And let's say now I'm in standard. By default, it's going to be a standard mode calculator, which I just showed you. It's like a basic calculator, basic arithmetic. But if I tap on the mode calculator, you'll have three options if you're updated to the last version. You'll have standard, scientific, or graphing. So what we're going to do for now, we're going to start off with scientific calculator. So you just move that cursor down, and it's going to auto-select that scientific option. If you have that checkbox on the right-hand side, that means that's the mod that we're going to use. So we're going to go back to our calculator. Now, it pretty much looks like the same interface that we had in the basic mode calculator, but if you notice at the bottom here, there's no double zero. There's a two arrow. So the second button from the left at the bottom of the calculator is a two arrow button now. And what that's going to give us is that if you press on that, then it's going to give us another menu which has all the sine and cosine, tan, all the logarithmic and exponential functions that you can use. Now, this calculator is pretty powerful because you can do either very standard arithmetic, or if you want to, you can do a scientific calculation. So if I do cos of 90, I think that's going to give me 0. But if I do cos of 180, that should be giving me 1. So a cosine is going to be a sine wave, and it's going to go up to 1 or to a -1. So I have my answer right here at the bottom. I can really see quickly, but if I want a full answer, you press the equal sign, and it's going to give you my full answer. But that's going to be a number answer, so you need numbers in your equations in order to use it. So I can do the same thing for sine, cosine, tan. I got logarithmic, natural log, logarithmic equations, exponential equations. I got the root equation here, so I can do any, let's say if I do a root of 4, that should give me 2. Okay, and you also have that the next button over beside the root function is the exponential function. So let's do 2 to the power of 4. That's going to give us 16, so equals 16. So that's how you use the scientific calculator. You also have here the pi function, or the pi variable, or the pi constant, I should say. So 3.14 and 16 if you round it off. So you can use that. If you're using radians, that's going to be a very helpful constant in using your cosine and sine functions. So that's the basic scientific calculator, but let's jump in the more interesting stuff where we see stuff happening on the screen. Let's go and set up our calculator so that it uses the graphic mode. So I'm going to go back to my settings, which is again the second button on the left-hand side. I'm going to select the mode option and then select graphing as mode. So that's going to be fun. Watch this. So again, the interface looks very, very similar. There's a couple of things that were added and placed otherwise, but basically you have the numbers on the left. You still have that button with the two arrow. That two arrow button will switch screens or switch interface at the bottom. And then here on the right-hand side, you have the x, y variable. You have the delete on top, and then you have the exponent, the square root, the pi constant, multiplication, division, the graph button, and then the plus, minus, and equal sign. So you can do a lot of things with this. Let's hit the button with the two arrows to switch. Now, if I do that, it's going to bring me to another screen. So the first thing that it does, it brings you to a trig functions, trigonometry screen functions. So you have all your sine, cosine, tan, and then you have cotangent, secant, and cosecant functions. So let's go through them a bit. So how you would use this? Again, the graphing calculator will use the Desmos engine. So the same Desmos engine that we're using on the Braille Note Touch at Humanware, and that is accessible also on their website, on Desmos website. So Desmos again is DESMOS. So you can take a look. They have a nice website that explains all their calculators and all that. So we're using that engine in our calculator. So let's start on a couple of functions here. So what you want to do is something like this. Y. Yeah. Do I want y or x? Let's try y. All right. So y is equal to sine x. So why am I putting these variables? Is that I want to see those variables changing, the value of that variable changing in the y-axis and the x-axis. Once you're done entering your equation, then what you do is you hit the graph button. And what it's going to do, it's going to go and get that engine, that Desmos engine, and it's going to trace out that function for you. So a sine wave, because we entered a sine function. So here you have a button banner, in which you have 3 buttons on the button banner at the bottom. You have the back button to go back to your calculator, but you have also a minus sign and a plus sign to zoom in and zoom out. So to zoom in, it's not going to enlarge the numbers, but I'm just going to zoom in into my graph here so I can see more particular section of my graph that I want to see. Okay, the numbers right now we can't adjust the size of the numbers, but when you zoom in, it's just going to zoom in on that sine wave that we have. And then what's interesting is that you can put your finger on that sine wave, and you can move along, and it's going to tell you where you're at on the graph. So here I'm at minus pi over 2, minus 1, and then you can move along with your finger, and then you can trace that, and you'll see where you're at in the graph on the x and the y axis. Okay, that's a pretty cool feature. Again, that's all in the Desmos engine. So let's try another function. Let's try cosine. So it's basically the same thing. So I'm just going to hit the delete here. I'm going to press the cosine. It already puts my open brackets, and then I'm going to put my x variable, close brackets, graph, and that's going to give me a different sine wave here because it's a cosine, so it's not passing through that 0 like we saw previously. So you can have fun with this. You can make the sine bigger or smaller, or you can put it on the other side if you want to. If we go back, so you can do this with all the other functions. I urge you to try it out, try different things in your spare time. Okay, so somebody said it did not show me a wavy line. So if it didn't show you the wavy line, are you entering those variables? Those variables, the x is very important and the y is very important, and it has to be something like x or y equals to something else with that variable. It should pop up, and it should trace that through the graphs. Okay, if you put numbers there, you can put numbers, but you need those 2 variables in order to have something on the graph. Okay. Okay. So again, the question was, she wrote everything that if you're not getting the graph, maybe try connecting to the internet, see if that works, but it should work without or with the internet. If that doesn't work, we can take it offline. Send me an email, and I can work with you maybe on a separate thread. Okay. All right. So this is my trigonometric functions, and under or beside the trigonometric functions, you have INV. So that's for the inverse functions. So if I click on that, it's going to give me all my inverse functions. So sine to the -1, cosine to the -1, tan to the -1. So it's all the inverse functions. So you got access to that. And then also underneath, you have the Misc functions. So if I click on that, you have a couple of functions here that we have. You have a Misc1 and a Misc2 menu. So we'll go through all these. So you have the e, or the exponential function. So if I delete what I have here, I'm going to say y is equal to Misc1 e to the x. That should graph me the exponential function. And there we go. So we have the exponential function that's going to be graphed. Again, I can zoom in, zoom out, or go back. This is how you use the exponential function. And then if we go back here to my Misc, I can use a natural logarithmic function, ln 2 x, close parentheses, graph that, and really it's the inverse of the exponential function that you're going to see. So that's what you're going to have there on the graph. So again, I cannot use my pinch and zoom, as you can see, because we don't control the Desmos engine, but we can use the plus function to zoom in, and then use your finger to go through the function display here. Go back to my Misc menu. I can also use the log function. So I have two logs here, one that is only log, and the other one is log to the base of a. So these difference is that the log is, the first one is log to the base of 10. So really the log of the base of 10 is the same thing as saying 10 to the x. So log x should give me the same thing as 10 to the x. So let's try it out. So my log base 10 to the x will graph my log function right here. So that's what we see. And then let's try it out that if my mass theory says that log to the x will equal to 10 to the power of x. Which is the inverse. Yeah, sorry. So it's the inverse. Log x is the inverse of 10 of x. So that's my mistake here. Sorry about that. Okay, and then in the Misc again, then you can use also the log of a. The log a will be that you can change that base of 10. So you can say base of 8 if you want to. Log 8. And graph that. See if that's going to work. That's only one value because I didn't put in my x. And there's my function. So that's different bases for the logarithmic functions. So that's my logs. And then you have the percentage sign underneath the logs. That's just to give you the percentage number. So if I write 200 and then hit the percentage sign, it's going to give me 200. It's going to give me my 200 in percent, which will be 2. So you can't really graph that, but you can add that to an equation. And then you have the modulus function, which is going to give you the remainder of your division. So how to use this in a graphical manner is that you can say mod, and then I'm going to say graph all the remainders. Whoops, I'm sorry, I forgot the y is equal to Misc of mod. Graph all the x, or the remainder on the x-axis of 2. So when I divide by 2, it's going to give me all the values of my remainders. So if I graph that, did I enter that right? Okay, so let's try this. Mod x, comma, 2. So we're going to try this again. There we go. So this is going to graph me all the remainders of my division by 2 on the x-axis. So that's how you would see it on a graph. Okay. So that was my first menu of miscellaneous. So you have Misc 1 and Misc 2. So let's try Misc 2 now. So you got, again, some more functions on this interface. So you have the floor function, which is going to give you the smallest, or it's going to round it off to the smallest integer. The ceiling function, which is going to round it off to upper integer. You have the round, which is going to round it off. Again, when you're going to hit the 5, it's going to go on the lower side, if I remember, on this function. Basically, I'm not going to go through these functions. They're pretty straightforward. And then the functions that are pretty cool are the derivative d over dx. So the way to use this is that, I have an example here. I should have an example. Yep, I do. So what you want to do is that you want to do the derivative. And let's do an example. So derivative of 1 divided by 2 x to the power of 2. So I'm just going to put in just an ordinary equation here. So plus 3x plus 2. Then we're going to graph that. So that should graph what that function is, the derivative of that function, and that's what I have. So this is how you would use it. On the next version that is going to be coming out in April, a Prodigi 4.3, you will have the possibility of doing integrals. So beside that derivative function, you'll have the integrals function, and you'll be able to enter a higher limit and a lower limit for your integrals, and you'll see the graph on there. And then you have the sine function. Really, the sine function was the first time that I saw that that function, but really I went to take a look at what was that sine function, but really it's the extract of the sine of a real integer. And really the real name for sine is the signum function. So I never really used it, and I went to university in engineering and never used that function. So it's there. If you guys know how to use it, you can use it. But yeah, so you have that access. And then you have the GCD and the LCM function. So the GCD function is the greatest common divisor, which means that it is the largest positive integer that divides each of the integer. So let's delete all this here. So if I say JCD, I'm hoping I'm going to get this right, and I didn't write myself an example there. But it's going to graph something really cool on the screen. I don't fully understand it, but I think what it's going to go through, it's going to go through all the variables, and it's going to show you the areas under there. Okay, so I have another question here. Can you graph more than one function at once, like a system of linear equations? Unfortunately, that's a very good question. I tried it out yesterday to see two functions. Let's say I had an exponential function and I wanted to compare it with a ln function, and I couldn't. So we're going to put it in the roadmap, because that could be really, really interesting to see where the two functions intersect. So I'm going to put that in the roadmap for future development on the graphing calculator. Okay. So let's do GCD of x, y. And I'm going to say everything smaller than 7. I'm going to graph that. So it's going to plot all the areas. It should, all the areas that are equal to that equation. So this is all the areas. The purple area, that's where the equation is true. So if I go back and I put, instead of 7 here, I put y, and I graph it, it's going to plot something else for me here. So all the blue area, that's what the function returns a true or a 1 for that. And the same goes for the LCM. LCM function will be, it's the least common multiplier, which is the smallest positive integer that is divisible by both the constants that you have there. So if I would do the same equation here, but use LCM, I would have this kind of same graph that was just shown here. And graph that, so you'll see all the areas that are okay for that function. So that will equate to that meaning of the function. Okay, and I kept the last function here for last. This really cool function, because if you go into my Misc 1, you have a polygon function, which I didn't go through yet. Kept it for the end because I find this very nice, and I showed this to my son. He's 10 years old, and we just learned about polygons. What is a polygon? So a polygon is a shape with coordinates on a graph. So you can have a 3-face polygon, you can have a 4-face polygon, up to whatever face polygon that you need. So it's going to be a shape that you're going to show on the screen. So I found that very interesting. So if you want to use that, you do polygon, and then you enter all the points of that polygon. So let's do a 3-face polygon here. So let's put in minus, no. So you have polygon with an open bracket. I'm going to put another bracket here. So that's going to be my first point on the graph. So it's going to be -5, comma, 2 with closing parentheses. So that's my first point on the graph, comma, open brackets, go back to 3, comma, 1, then close that parenthesis. I'm going to put another comma here, and a third point on my graph, open brackets, and -3, 1, close brackets. And then I'm close brackets again, because that's going to close my polygon function completely. And then I'm going to graph this. So you should be able to see a polygon with 3 faces. So if I zoom into this here, this is what we have. It's a triangle. So we have my 3 points that I've entered here. So I got my 3, 1, 3, 1. You have my -3, 1, and you have -5, 2. So that's your polygon. So you can enter as many points that you want to, and you'll get that on your polygon that you're requesting. So I found that very cool. So I have a little question here. Let me read it. Okay, so that's an interesting question here. Can you show us how to quickly flip back and forth between the calculator and using the device for near distance viewing? So we can show our students how efficiently use the calculator while completing worksheets in class. I like that. I like that question actually, and that there's a lot of ideas that pop up in my head right now for improvement. Because let's say I have this graph here running, and I'd like to complete my assignment. The quickest way to go back to my near view would be to use 2 fingers and double tap. So I'm going to use 2 fingers, double tap. This is going to bring me right away to my main screen, and then I'm going to tap on my magnifier, and my magnifier is really, I don't have my LEDs on, I don't know why. I'm just gonna, if that happens to you, the little LEDs that don't light up, just undock the tablet, redock the tablet. That should fix the problem. There we go. And then you can use your magnifier, okay? So you can put a piece of paper underneath and use the magnifier. And again, I went through this in the last webinar. You can set up, right now I'm sitting down, so I'm really sitting down at my office, and you can just bring that screen down and use like a small pencil so that you can go underneath and write underneath. I know it's not the best, but what you can do also, if you don't want to write in live mode like this, take a picture of the worksheet. So what we want to do is something like this. I'm going to take just a capture here, capture your worksheet, and save it to your gallery, okay? So here it's going to try to find some OCR, which it doesn't because it's handwritten. So I'm just going to save it to my gallery. And then what you can do is that, let's do this again. So go back to my calculator, okay? Double tap. I'm at my main menu. I can swipe to my gallery, and my first image that I see is the worksheet that I've just captured. I go in there. I'm going to turn off the OCR here, okay, and start editing my worksheet. pressing on the pencil here. So I can write my answer on my worksheet, then hit again my 2 fingers, go back to my calculator. Again, it's not the best, but thank you for that question, because that's how we improve the product. And I'll sit down and see what other things we can do with this. Maybe we can split the screen with the magnifier. That would be awesome. What I'm talking about here is the same thing as the distance viewing camera, where I can split the screen with it. So if I have my distance camera, I turn on my distance camera. Then I connect to my distance camera, and you'll see that there's a little arrow on the left-hand side, and I can split the screen with my magnifier. So that could be maybe a solution to toggle between the 2 applications. That would be awesome. Well, thank you for that question, because that's how we improve it. And unfortunately, right now, the only thing I can think of is really that 2-finger double tap to go back to my main menu, go to my magnifier to enter it in live mode, go to my big gallery to enter it virtually in my worksheet that I've taken a picture. And once I've done my worksheet and I've done my homework or whatever, I can share that worksheet with the teacher, with you guys, or I can send it out using Gmail or a Google Drive. And in the last webinar, it was asked to add Classroom to this application. So that's something that we'll add in future versions. But thank you again for that question. That's an awesome question. And I showed you a bit 2 ways of doing that. And anytime you're in a menu like this and you're lost and you don't know how to come back, just use those 2 fingers, double tap on the screen, and you're back directly to the main menu. So that's your quickest way to the main menu, and just you can slide your finger across and go back to your calculator. Okay, and right now I'm using speech, so it's voicing everything. So as you can see, it's stopping on everything that I'm doing. Personally, I don't really like that, but some users will like to have audio on all the time. If you want to go faster, you can turn off that audio by going into settings, clicking on audio, speech, and then just putting it on for documents if you want to. So it's going to read out the documents automatically, or you can turn it off. So it's not going to read the documents automatically, but you can turn that on if you want to read it on, or read it out loud. So I'm just going to turn it off here. I'm going to show you the difference. So I can just swipe and go several icons further down and go quickly to my calculator. So I think that's the quickest way to go around in Prodigi. But I know that my colleague Natalie is logged on to the webinar right now, and she's our new product manager for low vision, and she's going to take on that responsibility and maybe putting something like that into the roadmap. Okay. She just wrote on the chat, "Hi everyone." So good stuff. And at the same time, Natalie's learning all this. So that was a calculator, a powerful tool that's going to keep improving. And because your Mac Connect is connected to the Wi-Fi, it's going to get automatically updated when there is a new version. Yeah, so keep it online. If you can't keep it online, just check it regularly. Like I said, like I showed you at the beginning of the webinar, usually what we do is that we come out with 2 versions in a year. So in March usually, and in September. So this year I wanted something in March, but with all the situation that's going on right now in the world, it was pushed out to April. So it's going to be a new version in April coming out for the Prodigi software. Okay, so let's jump to the next topic, configuring your Mac Connect for your student to take an exam. Wow, time flies. It's already 10:45. So I'm going to try to do it in 5 or 10 minutes so that you guys can ask me questions, but keep those questions coming live so I can answer them. So like I said, when I went through this this week to see what would be the best way to deactivate or put a password protected on certain application, I found it a bit of tedious procedure. So this is going to improve. So I'm going to show you something that I think would work. But if you have other ideas, please share them with me. But I wanted just to show you this so that it can help you with your students. So on your Mac Connect, there is an application called APH. So if you go in the APH application, there's all kinds of applications that are installed or pre-installed, and these applications are pre-installed on the tablet and they're shown here, but you can add any application that are installed on the tablet basically. So, and I played around yesterday with the Lockdown Pro application, and Lockdown Pro is an application where you can lock down applications. And the last webinar that I had with the Hawaiian Education Board, well, it bugged on me, so I started looking for other applications, and I found an awesome one called App Lock, which is the one on top here. If you don't have that and you want to find it, it's a free application that you can download on the Google Store. So I'm going to show you that right away, how to do that. And the quickest way is to go to the APH application and then go in the gearbox button, which is on the top right corner. And I'm going to choose application, which is the first option on the top. Again, if you don't have the two buttons, one on the left, one on the right on the APH application, just press and hold the back button, and that's going to bring you to the same settings menu that I have right now. So where I'm at right now, I'm in the application selection. So all the applications that I have selected are going to show in my APH application. What you want to do is the quickest way is to go and add the Play Store in your list of APH applications. So that's what I did. I found Play Store, tap on it, and I'm going to get the check mark and go back to my APH application. And it's the first one on the top. So what you want to do is click on that. If you don't have an account already set up for your Mag Connect to go to the Play Store, it will ask you to set it up and all that. Please do. And then what you do is that you search for App Lock in one word. Search for that, and you'll find it. And me, I already have installed it. So you have a button on the right-hand side to install it, and you'll add that to your tablet. And then once you're done, come back to your APH application, do the same procedure. So hit on the gearbox, choose an application, and go get it in your list. So mine is right here. I already checked it, so it's in my list. So I'm going to show you how that works, because I think that it worked really well when I tried it yesterday, and I can block off things that I find is more meaningful than what Lockdown Pro does. Okay, so that's how you do it. You can play around with the Lockdown Pro if you'd like, but basically, if I do that, Lockdown Pro, let's start with Lockdown Pro. Mine's already set up with a password. First time it's going to boot, it's going to be in a portrait manner. It's going to be shown in a portrait manner, and that's not very useful when you're docked on the stand. So we're going to go back, and we're going to go find screen rotation control. If that's not installed, again, the same procedure to go to the Google Store to install that application, but now all the new Mag Connects should have that installed by default. So if I click on that rotation control, a little pop-up will show up, and then just choose landscape. Landscape, please. There we go. All right, so I've chose landscape, and then you close that little window, and next time you boot Lockdown Pro, Lockdown Pro will be in landscape mode. So that's a marvelous little app that does that for you. Again, you can choose any application in there. If it works good for you and you know how to use it, you can go down and select any application in the list. So let's say you don't want your students to go into Chrome. In the list, you'll find Chrome here. So tap on that, and it's going to disable it. And by disabling it, what it's going to happen is that once the student is going to tap on the Chrome application, it's going to ask you for a password. So when you enter your password for this, don't show it to your students, just keep it for yourself. And then you can, once everything is set up, you can tap on or off. So that's going to turn on or off what you set to lock with Lockdown Pro. So let's try it out. If I go back to my home, I'm going to choose here Prodigi always here. To go back to Android, go back and choose my Chrome application. Once I select my Chrome application, it's going to say, well, you can't start Chrome. You need your password. So the student can't use Chrome at all, unless he or she has the password. So if you want the student to use the Chrome application, then you can enter the password for them. So this is how Pro works. Like I said, it's an okay application to use, but I found the other application really powerful. So I'm going to go back to my Prodigi. I'm going to go back in my Lockdown Pro. I'm just going to deactivate what I've done here to show you the other application. So AppLock is the same kind of application. So I've entered a gesture here. So you're going to get a list of applications that are installed on my tablet, and you can turn off or put a password protected on any application. So what I found really useful on this one is that, yes, I can go and tap on Chrome and it's going to lock my Chrome application, or it's going to lock any application that is installed on my my Mac Connect. But I also have the possibility of locking any Prodigi application. So Prodigi, like I said, is a suite of application, and you have a calculator application, or you can have a distance application. So if, let's say, you don't want your students to use your distance application in Prodigi, you can tap on that, and it's going to lock it. So each time the student is going to go to distance, he will be prompted with a password, so it won't be able to use that. But also, what this application does is that, let's say I turn off my Wi-Fi, and I don't want the student to go and activate my Wi-Fi. You can tap, there's a Wi-Fi option, so you can tap on that, and it's going to log the Wi-Fi to whatever state that is on right now. So you can lock that out completely. But besides that, you can have that network be forgotten, so you can log that down also. But that, I found that very powerful. So now, if I locked my distance application and I lock my Chrome, I'm going to go back to my Prodigi. So next time I'm going to try to use my distance application, I should be prompted with my password. So I can't use my distance application. So that's what I found very helpful using that app lock application. I can log down the calculator, the books application, or the distance application. But let's say there's a situation where you want your students to only use a calculator application. And right now, that's a procedure that I don't really like, but I'd like to improve on future versions. But what you can do is go outside to Android. So again, I use my 5-finger or 4-finger press and hold on the screen, and it's going to go out to Android. And what you can do is that you go into all applications, find that Prodigi icon, press and hold on it, and uninstall it. Don't worry, if I uninstall it, I can reinstall it afterwards. So we've uninstalled Prodigi, but only Prodigi. So I cannot see my gallery, I cannot use my magnifier, I cannot do any settings. But if I go back to my applications, I have the calculator application still installed. So I can tap on that and I can use my calculator. But I can't go back. If I go back, I go back to where I was previously, and that's where all my applications are. So I can lock all that down except for my calculator that my student is going to use. And if I want to put that on my desktop, on my Android desktop, I can press and hold, put that on my Android desktop, and you have the calculator application right in the middle. You can activate for your students if they're very low vision. You can activate the accessibility magnification. So what you want to do is that you want to go into the Android settings. I've locked that down so that they can't play around with the settings. But you can go into accessibility. And I want to see here, you can activate talkback, you can activate select to speak, but also what's very useful is the magnification gestures that you should turn on. And what that's going to do is that when they're going to go into Android or anywhere else, you can triple tap on the screen. It's going to put everything bigger, and you can also magnify more using a pinch and zoom, so they can see really nicely that icon. Tap on it, and that's that's how you can use only the calculator application from Prodigi. Once the exam's done and you want to have Prodigi installed again, what you do, go into all applications and find Prodigi. Here, I'm going to put it bigger. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. I want it triple tap, find in your applications. Did you see what I just did here? To pan in that mode is a 2-finger press, and you can pan on that. And then you see Prodigi Updater, tap on that. It's going to see that my Prodigi is uninstalled, so I have an update to do. So install, it's going to download Prodigi, reinstall it. You won't lose all your gallery stuff. Everything's going to be there, and you're ready to use your Prodigi application. So right now, that's the best way I found to block the student from using any third-party applications, using third-party apps like that, and blocking it. And also, if you want to just use the calculator, for now, that's the best way. But we'll work on improving that procedure, okay? So I'm almost done. I got 5 minutes left to 11 o'clock Eastern time. So let me get all your questions. Please type in questions. I love questions. So I'm waiting for your questions. Please please type in some questions, some good ones. Get the teacher, myself here, boggled down on something that's not working, or I get stuff I can't do. Okay. So I have one question. I have a student who uses a simplify button on Classroom Calculator. Is this possible using the current edition? If not, will it be available in the future? I do not understand the simplify button on Classroom Calculator. Maybe it's me that I don't understand the Google Classroom application, but if I understand there is a simplify calculator in the Classroom application, is that right? So right now I have installed the Prodigi again, so I got access to my Prodigi. If I go into my gallery, I didn't lose anything. The only thing I lost, though, and that is really simple to go and get, is my APH applications here. You can select which application that you want in the list, and then go back and have your applications on there. Well, I can look into that, access the simplified 4-function Desmos calculator. We can look into that and see what, right now we can't do that, but we can see what can be done. Okay. Well, right now we can't do that. So we'll look into that and see what can be done in the Classroom application. See if there's a fraction simplify. So on the calculators they use in the Classroom, there is a simplify button they use for fractions. Interesting. I'll see what can be done. I'll see what we can do in future development. But right for now, we can't use that. So I have another question here. Where can teachers find these archive webinars? It's all on the YouTube channel. That's where I've put them all on the playlist, the Humanware playlist. What you can do also is go into the main menu here. If you're connected to Wi-Fi, go to the help application, YouTube tutorials, and then you have two options, either Mac Connect. These are all small. It should bring you to the playlist of small capsules that are already made in YouTube. So these are all small capsules on the Mac Connect. If not, if I go back to Prodigi here, I choose webinars. It's going to bring me to my page of all the webinars that were done. I'm seeing here that we're missing the last one that were done, but basically that's where they are. So, and also, there you go. Leanne just published the URL in the chat room for you guys to access. But as soon as I get my recorded version, because right now we're recorded, we will send that out to you to the mailing list that we have. I've thought of that, and okay, so a suggestion here for the calculator. It might be nice for future updates to include all calculator functions found on the TI-84 calculator. I think this is a pretty standard calculator used across all schools, and really I thought of that. I know that APH did not discontinues the calculator that they were offering. So I was into looking into that and having all the functions into our calculator in Prodigi. But we have to start somewhere, and it's going to be an iterative process. The calculator was a really big. There's a lot of functions in there, so that has to be integrated with time. Okay, so someone here is, she checked her Prodigi Connect 12. Okay, well, a Prodigi Connect 12 will not have, unfortunately, the graphing option. The graphing calculator right now is only offered in the APH version, so not in the Prodigi Connect 12. Okay, so the person that asked why it's not in the Connect 12, just basically it's the contract-wise with APH, we need some differentiation between the two products, and this is one of the differentiation that we have between the two products. We're working on something to differentiate on the graphing calculator, so we need to have a different interface for the Connect 12 if we are going to offer a graphing option in the calculator for the Connect 12. But for now, only APH Math Connect offers the graphing calculator. Exactly, this is due to making it federal quota eligible. Thank you, Leanne. So now we're at the end of the webinar. Leanne, can you please chat the closing code for me, please, and I'll voice it out to everybody. So the closing code for this session is exam. So the opening was equation, the word equation, and the closing code is exam. Okay, and this email these opening close codes to oh my god, blank. Thank you, Leanne, again. outreach@aph.org. So this is outreach@aph.org. So outreach in one word, O-U-T, reach, R-E-A-C-H, the at number, the at sign, sorry, aph.org, O-R-G. And now Leanne just posted on the chat. So there's in the Zoom application, there's an option for the chat. So go in the chat, you will see the opening, the closing code, and also a link to our survey to rate this webinar. So this is how I get better in giving webinars, and this is also how we can improve on giving better material or materials that you guys want to listen to and see, you know. So please take a few minutes and answer the survey, and that will really help us. And I'm going to show you here just a link on aph.org. This is where all the other timing for and the possibility for registering for future webinars. So we already have a schedule made for other webinars that's going to bring us to the summer up to now. But this is where you can see and register for future. I'm just going to share you a link here. I'm going to show you it on the screen also. So if you go on the APH website and you go into educational resources, you'll see training here. Hold on, I'm just gonna try to share my screen. Too many windows open in on my desktop here. All right. So I think everybody can see my screen that I'm sharing, but if I go into my APH website, educational resource, and you go down to training, you'll have here, this is today's webinar. This is where you could have registered very easily to today's webinar, but also you'll see at the bottom here, the next one is going to be in April 23rd, and we'll go through the books application and how to use that. So the books application, what is really, really cool is that in the next version in April, you'll have the possibility now of seeing pictures when using the books application. So the books application in Prodigi right now can only read in column mode, so you don't see any pictures. So that's not very useful when doing, for example, sharing a math book, but now in the next version in April that we're going to be coming out, you'll be able to see pictures and read out loud the text and all that. So you can share with students your books, and also show you also how to share books with your students and how your students can see those books through using Prodigi. Okay, so that's all I have for today. Thank you very much again for attending, and please take a couple of minutes and answer the little survey that was shared through the chat, and I'll send you an email to everybody that attended, and with all these links and all the information where to register for next webinars and things like that. So you'll have everything that that we've talked today about, and also the link to the archived webinar.